All right. Folks in cyberspace, this is Focus on Liberia. Again, folks in cyberspace, this is Focus on Liberia. And at this time, we want to welcome you to our program. Today is Saturday, and we are having a Saturday special. Again, folks in cyberspace, this is Focus on Liberia. And we are happy to be live at this time on a very, very important topic. We have an eyewitness account. We have a gentleman who is our guest, and he has just returned from Monrovia fresh with all the facts and also an eyewitness account about what has been unfolding in the country in terms of the economy and how it's impacting our people and a general sense of security in the country. Also, we have our analyst here, Dr. Kula, who is with us to provide some analysis on what Mr. Robert Gagwa has to say about his experiences while he was in Liberia for a little over a month. Folks, welcome to the show. Share the show as we are about to go into our conversation. But before we start, let us welcome our guests. Robert, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation, and as always, I'm no stranger to this show. It's always an honor to be here to give my 2 cents and to speak on national issues concerning our country, and the growth and development of our country. So it's always an honor to be here. So thank you for the invitation, and I look forward to a very interactive show and a very fair and balanced conversation and a healthy conversation. So thank you again.
Thank you, Robert, and Mr. Robert Gagwa Jr. right there, who has just returned fresh from Monrovia. He been there, from our understanding, for over a month, and so he can tell the story as he saw it here during his time there. Also with us is our analyst, Dr. Kula. He's our policy analyst here. Dr. Kula, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Dad, you are on mute. Can you unmute yourself from your end? Good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can now.
Yeah, I said I'm looking forward to a healthy discussion with Robert, someone I know from our Liberian community here in Atlanta, Georgia. He happens to be, I think, our vice president for LAMA, the Liberian Association of Metropolitan Atlanta. So I look forward to a great discussion.
All right, thank you, Dr. Kula there, who is a chief policy analyst here at Focus on Liberia. Folks, the stage is set for our conversation. I am Anthony here hosting on today's edition of our show, and we will go straight into our conversation. And then we will bring in Robert. Robert, you just returned from Liberia. Let's start with our first segment. What is the general sense of the economy? How are ordinary people feeling about the state of the nation economy, their day-to-day life? How is the economy impacting them, and how are they reacting to it?
Well, thank you for that question. I would like to put out a disclaimer. I just want to be explicitly clear that I do not speak as an economist. That's not my forte. That's not my area. However, I considering the fact that I visited Liberia consistently over the past 8 years, I think I have a sense of understanding as far as the day-to-day dealings and happenings as far as the economy. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Robert Glade Gagor. I'm a Liberian residing in the state of Georgia, Atlanta to be precise. And I've been in Georgia since I was a 14-year-old kid. I love it out here. The weather is beautiful, and it's hot. Well, things have changed over the past years with global warming. It never used to get this cold during the wintertime, but now it's getting a little colder. We got snow, I think, a week or two ago. But I love it out here. And like Dr. Kula said, I'm the vice president of the Liberian Association in Georgia. But what I love the most is the fact that I'm a humanitarian. I've been giving back and being a part of the rebuilding process since 2009. I have an organization that focuses on education and giving back to our country in that sense, because I strongly believe that the future of our country is rested on how well we build our human capacity, and I know that we've lost an entire generation to the senseless war in Liberia, and so it's imperative that we invest on our future, and our future is the kids, and so that's what I do. Now, to your question, of course, I was in Liberia in April of 2019, and it was my first time back home since the election of the newly elected government under George Weah. And so I was there in April, and then I returned in December. So it was, I think it was 6 months after. So I was there twice, 2019, and of course I just returned. Now, I think what we've been missing, I just want to be clear, when we have our conversations about Liberia, about the economy, I have a sense that there's a lack of honesty within our conversation, whereas you have two groups. You have the ruling party, and you have the opposition. And what I've observed is that there are two different perspectives within our conversation when it comes to Liberia, be it the economy, be it development, be it whatever, politics. I've noticed that we lack a sense of honesty. Whereas when you ask people within the government, people within the ruling party, what is the sense of the economy? Even though there are clearly issues when it comes to the economy, even though there are clearly economic crises in Liberia, there's this narrative that does not speak to the truth. And when you ask people within the opposition, be it the economy, be it, is there anything within this government that you see that are good? Even when the facts point to some good, their minds are made up. They see nothing, absolutely nothing good with the government. So there are two different sides of the story, but there's always the truth and the objective and balance side. And I'm not perfect. And I like to think that I try to be as objective as I can be, because like I always say, my loyalty is Liberia. And so when I went back home in April, there was this sense of course, the economy hasn't been working. Uh, the economy is not working, and you don't need to be an economist. You don't need to have a master degree from Harvard to understand and realize and admit that the truth and the fact of the matter is the economy has deteriorated. The economy has not worked. And one of the things that I've noticed is that when I went back in April, a lot of people, I meet a lot of our students. We have an organization of parents whose children are under our scholarship, and we meet a lot of times. I meet a lot of people a lot of times and I ask, but what's your sense of the economy? How has things been with you? And a lot of people would say the economy is bad. It's not easy, my son. But it's pro now, and so we are managing. And one of the things that I gathered in April 2019 was that the government adopted a slogan, "Propos," and that slogan, it is my understanding that there are elements within the government, people who understand economics, excuse me, who may have some idea of what the objective of Propos actually is, right? And then there are 89% or 85 or 80% of the population who sees Propos more as an agenda, right? They understand Propos as though, look, we are in a poor situation. And so whatever that's thrown at you, you have to understand that we are poor. We don't have the resources. The government don't have money. And so even when we have economic issues, even when we have policies issues that are affecting the economy, I want you to understand that, this is a pro-poor government and we don't have it. And I think that the government hasn't done a great job when it comes to explaining from the Weir's doctrine, from his economic plans, what pro-poor actually means from the Liberian perspective, because people who understand the meaning of pro-poor understand the general aspect, the general definition of what pro-poor actually is. In Liberia,
Robert, let me hold you there. Let's assume the government has been able to do a good job in explaining what the pro-poor actually means. And let also agree for the sake of argument that the people understands it. I mean, the people understand it. And the people know how and why things are working, based on the definition of the propos. Would that make them to just live with it for the longest?
No, it won't. It won't. What it does is it makes them to ask the tough questions in the midst of these economic crises, and it allows them to not only ask the tough questions but push back on answers. Okay, and I was going with that point. And a lot of times in our country, Liberia, which is why I'm so passionate about education, a lot of times we lack the understanding of simple things, even when it comes to our elections. We don't ask questions that our government officials expect us to ask, and so the expectation is so low. And so when people understand what propos is, and they see what the government is giving them, they ask the tough questions, and it also allows them to say, "But wait a minute, this is my understanding of propos. There should be policies that aim to uplift the poor. But if we are in a pro-poor, if this is a pro-poor agenda, then why is it that the policy does not benefit the poor? In fact, why is it that we are encouraging and or supporting policies that further affect the poor? And so when you look at the economy, things are not moving the way it should move. Of course, there are different factors. When Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was in office, she there were things that contributed to the flow of money in Liberia. And I will be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that it also had to do with her economic policies, right? And
Robert, let's
yeah.
leave that aspect of Ellen. We will get to that. We want to get the general sense of how the people are feeling right
Well,
now,
the
based on the
general
reality of the day. And then when we nail that, then we can go to how things were, and then we can compare that to
okay.
today.
Well,
Yeah.
in a nutshell, Sandra, the general sense and the general sense, and we have to be honest, is that the economy is not working. The economy is not working. I've said over and over that this administration is approaching 2 years, and I would not be the one to throw criticism just loosely on this government. But the truth and the fact of the matter is, and anyone who loves the country will admit to this, the economy has not worked. It appears as though there was no plan when it comes to the economy, because I find it hard to believe, and even my friends in government, I find it hard to believe that this government did not understand the capacity or the magnitude of which they were inheriting. And so, if when you're running for office, I think there are different things that your campaign has to do, your due diligence. And I find it hard to either, no one can say, hey, we did not expect to get elected. But it appears as though that they did not understand the magnitude of what they were signing up for. And even after the election, after a year and a half, after a year, 8 months, it appears as though we have a finance minister that does not quite understand how to fix this economy. And I've said over and over that I think it's time to reset. The economy is not working. Period.
Thank
Period.
you, Robert.
And for a lot of folks, not just only the poor folks, I think there are people who are fortunate, like you and I, who have visited Liberia or who live in Liberia, and I can say that they are feeling the pinch of the economy.
Thank you. Again, folks in cyberspace, this is Focus on Liberia. The gentleman you just listened to is Robert G. Gagwa Jr. He just returned from the nation's capital, Liberia. He was there, from what we learned, a little over a month or 2 months. And so he was able to get an eyewitness account of how the economy is impacting our people. And he's not making it worse. Something he said, it's like the government did not understand the magnitude of what they were taking over. And so things are more like completely out of control, if I can put it that way. We have our analyst here, Dr. Kula. Dr. Kula, you just listened to Robert, explaining to you what he saw, what he experienced. He asked people questions and they said, son, it's tough, but we are managing. How long can the Liberian people manage with this government?
Well, before I get into how long the Liberian people will manage with this government, the reality is they have no choice but to manage for 6 years. 2 years has elapsed. We're going into the third year now as of January 2020. This president has 3 more years, so they have to live with it. They have to live with the full term of this government and deal with what they have, because I remember my sister told me when I was about to get married, when you get married to somebody, you take the whole package. Same thing with when you elect somebody in government. When you elect that person, you take the whole package, the good, the bad, the ugly. Now, the reality is this, what Robert has said in a nutshell, I picked on 2 things, or maybe more. I might go into more, but the 2 major things that I picked on is that this government was not prepared for what they got into. When they got elected, they were not prepared for governance. They were not prepared for the economy. And the Minister of Finance does not know what to do about the economy. Now, let's look at this government. President Weah, before he became president, was in the House and Senate. He was in the Senate for, I think, 2 years, almost 3 years. So he had to know the reality of what we were faced with in terms of the fact that Unmill was drawing down and they were leaving. And we knew that that huge chunk of money that was being put into the economy by Unmill would leave once Unmill left. He also knew that we were hit hard by Ebola in 2014, and that also took a chunk out of the economy. Knowing all of this, these guys should have sat down together and put together a strong team made up of the tripartite arrangement so that when they got into the power, the first thing they would do, all hands on deck, get the economy going and reshape the economy for the realities that were on the ground. But like everything we see in this government, there's a lot of mediocrity and there's a lot of incompetence and there's a lot of a situation where they were not ready for the task at hand. They were not ready for prime time, and they seem like they're still not ready for prime time. And the reality is, if they do not put their act together and reshuffle this government, sit down with people in the NPP, sit down with people in the LPDP and the CDC and find competent Liberians for the task at hand, they will continue to make one misstep after another, and they will continue to look incompetent and make our country look bad, make us as native Liberians, and I consider myself a native Liberian, my name doesn't hide, make us look bad in terms of governance, because two things that have happened to us as native Liberians. We've had two leaders that are truly native in the sense of the word, socially, ethnically, and whatnot, even though Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was a daughter of a native, son of a native chief, but her socialization was more or less American-Liberian, so most people don't count her. The fact of the matter is, when we came to choose, in this instance, a president that should have led us and made our country what it ought to be for the poor people in terms of pro-poor, you know, doing things to lift the people out of poverty, this leadership and those around them seem like all they have done so far is to make sure that they were taken care of. They ate first. You know, in Cummings's words, the leader should eat last is a book. But in our context in Liberia, you usually don't use those words, eat last or eat first. But it seems like they ate first. And then now they're trying to figure out the rest for our people. And they need to figure out the rest for our people to make that economy work for our people, or else the people will continue to cry. We'll continue to have instances where we have no fuel on the market. Sooner or later, we might not have any rice on the market, and so on and so forth. So we need to talk the truth. You can't keep saying that people hate WIA. You can't keep saying that it's Ellen's economy, but then when you bill in the roads that Ellen sourced money for and Ellen started, you claim it's you building all these roads. So it's your economy now. Own it and do something about it is what I have.
Dr. Kula, quickly, and the thing is, many people are pointing all the fingers at the current government because maybe rightfully so, the current government is in charge. Maybe rightfully so because the current government, when it was campaigning, promised the change, and the people are yet to see that change. But the fact also is the government is not generating the revenue compared to previous administration. So maybe that is one of the reasons why the government is not doing much to turn the economy around.
You can't generate the same type of revenue knowing that a huge chunk of the economy is gone, is what I just said earlier. They knew Unmill will no longer be in the country. It's not a surprise, it's not a shock. Everybody knew Unmill was leaving, okay? So your economists and those that are supposed to be on your economic team should have been sitting out and thinking, how do we fill the gap of Unmill leaving? But it seems to me that these guys were not sitting out and thinking about serious things. They were thinking about how to get in power and to enjoy it. That's the problem. So when all you're thinking about is to gain power for power's sake and not what you're gonna do, you're using slogans like change for hope, but you're not bringing real change, then you will have these problems. So this is not a surprise. Everybody knew Unmill was going, you know, and that's what most of that money is gone from. It's Unmill, a huge chunk of the economy. So it's not a surprise. So I'm not going to sit here and baby them and feel sorry for them. Yeah, we knew Unmill was going. What are you going to do about it? What ideas are you going to bring to the table to fill the gap that Unmill left? That's what I have to say to that.
And Dr. Kula, the government is saying to us that yes, OME created a huge void and it's so significant that it can be filled in 2 years, but they are taking measures like harmonization. They are trying to make the central bank to be much more liquidated so that the economy can be able to bounce back and maybe these things will start paying off soon. And so maybe Liberian should be a little patient. Is there any hope in that?
You can't tell the people to be patient and keep telling the people to be patient, but at the same time, you live in lavishly as if to say things are okay. Okay. The president can't say, y'all wait, let's be patient. We'll make the economy okay, but yet you're riding in a private jet that costs $17,000 an hour. You know, I mean, you just Google Vista Jet or whatever the name of the jet is, and you go there. It gives you the menu of the different prices that they have. If you want champagne, women's serving you champagne, there's a price for that. If you want a certain type of plane, there's a price for that. So you can't do that, and you can't have the economy such that the first big scandal was a $16 billion scandal, okay, where there was really no head, no tail from that. The $25 million mop up, where there was no head, no tail from that, where you said you were taking monies off of the market, okay, and putting it in our bank, but come to find out the report said there was not really, they never really sanitized that money and kept it in the bank. They mixed everything up together, but yet the people still getting owed torn up money. There's no sense of the matter. Then you talk about harmonization, but you brought the same problem, you brought the problem on yourself by piling the payroll with all these CDC people that you wanted to give jobs to, okay? Now you say you want to harmonize because there's so many people on the payroll. It's the problem with this government is they're sending so many different mixed messages. They're paying Peter, they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. They're doing extra budgetary spending, and it mixes everything up and messes everything up, so to speak. So my advice to them would be, have a clear direction, have a vision, sit down and look at the economy, put your heads together and do things that give the people confidence in the economy, give the people confidence in the banking system, where when they go to the bank to get their money, they can get their money out. Not go to the bank to get money to get your patient in the hospital a down payment, but you can't get but a certain amount, and a lady's daughter end up dying. You do stuff like that, it creates a situation where people have no confidence in the banking system, and people hold on to that money. So do the things that create confidence in the economy, confidence in the banking system, and that gives your word some value. If you say the economy is hard, you tighten your belts. Have people around you tighten their belts, but you can't be lavishly spending and telling our people, oh, be patient.
Thank you.
Go together.
Again, folks, in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia. My name is Anthony hosting. We have with us Dr. Kula, our analyst here, and also our guest for today's show is Robert G. Gagwa. He just returned from Liberia, and he is telling us firsthand information about the reality on the ground economically and how our people are dealing with it. Robert, the ordinary man does not understand all this politics. All they know is how do they get their cup of rice at the end of the day. And today, they realize that the amount they were paying for a cup of rice has changed, not for the better, but for the worse. The same can be said about gas and almost every other commodity that they need to survive. So my question is, you think the feeling that the economy will turn around sometime soon?
Well, before I answer that question, I just want to give clarity to what Dr. Kula said with regards to his analysis of my opening statement. I just want the record to reflect. I did not say that the government wasn't prepared for governance. Now, governance is a word that encompasses a lot of things. What I said was, it seems as though the chief economist, Samuel Tweed, does not fully understand this economy, and which is the reason why I've publicly and privately called for his dismissal. And so I just wanted to make that clear. Now, with regards to whether or not the economy will get back to where it should get to. Look, I have absolutely no faith in Samatwe. I have absolutely no faith in Samatwe, and I think that there are few things that can be done to get the economy back to where it needs to get back to. I think that, like I've said publicly, I think this government, I think President George Weah has to recruit some smart 21st century experienced economists with some common sense ideas on how we actually get the economy back to where it needs to be. The fact of the matter is, people are not spending. You already had an issue with people not having money, especially the poor. Even when the economy was, even when money was in the country, when arm mill was in Liberia, and you had all of the cash and stuff, cash flow, you still have problems of people not having enough cash to spend, and that has gotten worse. And so I think that Samatua and ideas have not done the magic, and so I think it's time for this president to reset. And so I will be disingenuous to say I believe that in the next 5 months or in the next 6 months things will get better. When I've said that I don't trust this the chief economist, and as long as Samatua is heading that department for the past almost 2 years, I think he has proven fail, and I think it's time for a reset. Having said that, though, I do believe that if we come together, if we engage constructively, if we are open to helping our country and not just looking at the politics of it, I think that there's a strong possibility that this economy can strive. There's strong possibilities that this economy can do better. But if we are so, focused on the politics of it, and so focused on the negativity of it, then I believe that not only would the economy continue to suffer, but I believe that the poor people will suffer. I was in Liberia recently, and before I went, I was told by my people that they said, Robert, you need to bring a lot of cash with you. Bring a lot of cash with you because there's no money in the bank. There's no money in the ATM. And I said that with all honesty. During my time in Liberia, I did not post not once about my experience with the ATM. And they said, we can't get cash on the ATM. You should bring cash. And so I took all this cash with me, and just to be on the safe side. And I visited a couple of ATM machines. And I will tell you this, I think I had a lot more problem getting money from the ATM a couple of times more than I did this time. And so I said that to say, there's this picture that's painted on social media about what's happening on the ground.
But did you get money from the ATM at all?
No, well, I was told that you couldn't get money from the ATM at all. But there were many occasions where I was able to get money from the ATM with no problems. And I might let me just add that obviously, and this is not new. Obviously, there have been times where you cannot consistently go to the ATM and collect money at any time. For instance, if I woke up in the morning at 9 o'clock and I got the time by 10:30 or 11 o'clock, there's a strong possibility that if I went to Mama Point Hotel, I can get cash with no question. Now, if I went to the ATM by 9:30, 10 o'clock, no cash. And because a lot of folks have visited the bank during the daytime, during business hours, and they've collected cash, and obviously there's no cash in the ATM. But there have been times where I faced more difficulties using the ATM machine or using my card at any major establishment like the Royal Hotel and other places than I did recently. And I said that to say there's the reality of what's going on. There's the politics of it, and there's the picture that's painted on social media. But overall, it does not negate the fact that the economy is not working. And I think that it's time for this government to hit the reset button.
And Robert, what was your experience with the banks, leaving the ATM, but the banks? Did you go to the bank at some point in time to see if you could deposit or withdraw money? And what was your experience?
Well, I'm sorry, I had a call coming in.
It's okay.
I did not go to the bank. I got to be honest with you. Whenever I was sent money once, and I did not go to the bank. I got the money without going to the bank, and it's only because I, in Liberia, I gotta be honest with you. Even though I don't like this. When you have a couple of different privileges, you can get that. A couple of folks that I know work at the bank, so I was able to collect my money without actually physically being there. So I didn't go, but I know for a fact that there are loan lines at the bank. I know for a fact that folks cannot receive money. There were people who stood in lines for 4 or 5 hours just to collect money, and unfortunately, even standing in line after 4 or 5 hours, they still could not collect that money that day. And so I think the banks, that's there are lots of different issues there. But I did not go to the bank to collect money. I did not go to the bank.
Thank you, Robert.
I did a lot of cash out. Yes.
Yeah, before I go to Dr. Kula, there's something you said I want to ask you on. You believe that Samuel Twe should go. That's why you said, but Samuel Twe is not the only one on the economic management team. It's a team that is responsible, to turn the economy around. And your emphasis is on Samuel Twe, or because he is just the head of that economic management team. Don't you think that is unfair to Mr. Twe? I think you're trying to single him out.
No, not at all. I mean, people. If everything, like for instance, let me give you an example. The gas shortage, the gas crisis that we've having in Liberia. I think for those who's calling on the president to take responsibilities, I think they are absolutely right. Look, the fact of the matter is the buck stops with the president. We work in corporate America. We are leaders in our respective jobs. I run a restaurant as one of the managers. If something happens in our restaurant, even if I wasn't responsible for it, I'll take full responsibility. And so the president, yes, have to take full responsibilities, but there are people that he have designated to ensure that some of these things are not happening. Samatua is the chief economist, and I believe that Samatua cannot do it all. You're absolutely right. But the fact of the matter is, when the president meet with his economic team, the president meet with and take the most advice from his chief economist. A lot of the different ideas have been put forth by, I believe, Samuel Twe. And I find it hard to believe that there's some guy sitting at the finance ministry or anywhere else that somehow is bringing all the different ideas that Samuel Twe does not strongly believe in. And the truth is, his ideas have not worked. I mean, when you talk about the MOP, the $25 million, I think that was a great idea. The implementation of that, I think, have not been so successful. And so the president may have, and I don't think he's an economist like myself, but you bring people who you believe fully understand the economy, and people who you believe, based on your economic vision, can pull forth ideas, can pull forth policies that will work. It hasn't worked. And so I believe the restructuring has to start with Summer Twed. It will make absolutely no sense to get rid of the assistant finance minister or deputies or people within the branch, thinking that you're going to reset with some new ideas with the hair still there. So I think if you get rid of Summer Twed and bring in people or another person who I believe has a 21st century common sense economic viewpoint, I think things will get better.
Thank you, Robert. Dr. Kula, is this issue with the economy more so with Samuel Twe not knowing what to do, or the president not knowing what to do? What do you think?
Let me make some clarification about what I said earlier. Robert, I didn't imply that you said that this government wasn't ready to rule. I looked at what you said, and from your assessment and from what I've seen in the governance of the country. It's my opinion that this government was not ready to rule. They were not ready for prime time.
Okay,
They were not at all. And the reason I say that is because of all of the various missteps that we had. The beginning with this president breaking down his properties and building it with no sense of awareness of the economy is bad. You're telling the people the economy is bad, but you're breaking down all your property. You're there dedicating a theater here, and you're sitting there making fun and people laughing, making a joke while you're dedicating your theater. You're there handing out a building that you built to the Female Journalists Association. You got this complex of all these buildings. You broke down the 9th Street place, and you're building up a mansion and whatnot. You telling people the economy is bad. You're riding private jets. You have a situation where you're saying y'all doing a mop up, but where in this world have you seen a banking system take cash and go on the street and divide it among vendors? I've never seen that anywhere before. It makes no sense, you know? All of the things that they've done, even when they first took over, I called Liberia to speak to certain people who were supposed to be in the inner workings of the government. I said, where's your team that's handling, medicine or healthcare? I've got some ideas and I've got some people that could help them out. Nobody could tell me anything. A lot of the very guys from here that went CDC USA, some of them sat down in Monrovia for 6 months waiting to see how they could make things happen. They didn't know no head nor tail. The structure that was set up within the tripartite to run things and the ideas that they gave and the way they were supposed to run, they scrapped all of that and started doing their own thing, which made no sense. You take somebody that knows nothing about foreign affairs and you make him the Minister of Foreign Affairs based on whatever arrangement you had, tells me you're not ready for prime time. You did not think this thing through. And the economy being as bad as it is, and you were in the Senate knowing that UNMIL was going, knowing that we had a hit from the Ebola situation, and y'all had no real plans for the economy. Look at the Pro-Poor agenda for transformation. They made us feel like they had everything together. They were ready to rule come day one. When was the Pro-Poor agenda done? Senator that came to America and started asking people questions. They didn't produce that thing until I think July or almost October of the year that they took power. Are you kidding me? You guys were not ready for prime time. But now to get to your question, who do we deal with in terms of the economy and whatnot, whether be it George Weah or whether be it Samuel Twift? For me, the buck stops with the president. Okay? You were on, and I will use soccer analogy because that's what you know. You were on a soccer team. My son plays soccer. He plays club soccer at a place called GSA, an academy team, right? You don't take people that play for second division or that don't play in a particular position and you go put them as striker. You take somebody that's supposed to be maybe a defender or that's supposed to be in the goal, you go make him striker. It does not make any sense. Okay, and that's what George Weah has done. George Weah has not sat down and said, you know what? I play soccer at a very high level. Let me put together a team that's strong, that's cracked, that's going to score goals, that's going to win, tournaments after tournaments, meaning our economy is going to be number one. Let me put a crack economic team together. Let me put a good foreign affairs team together, a national security team together. Let me put a good cabinet together because these are the guys that are supposed to advise me to make sure this country runs well. That's how you're supposed to think as a leader, as a manager. You understand? But here, the whole thing starts with us as Liberians. We took a man that has no executive leadership skills, no experience, and we made him president of our country. If, for example, you had shown me that George Weah had ran PSG or one of those teams that he played for in his heyday, and he was manager, and he took those teams and he structured their finances and he structured their whole governance structure and their teams and whatnot, then you have something to fall on. But we as Liberians, we have nothing to fall on. We really don't.
Dr. Kula, someone may argue that Weah has done his part. For example, he appointed Wesley Tapper to handle the issue of comments. He has appointed somebody at APRC to handle the issue of petroleum product being brought into the country and distributed for people to have access to it, and so on and so forth. So if these people are not performing, maybe we should hold the people accountable, or the president should hold accountable and not pointing all the fingers at the president. Maybe
we can hold the president. We can do both. We can hold the president accountable and hold the people accountable. And how do we hold the president accountable? By what I just said. When you're putting together a team, you put together a crack team that will do what they're supposed to do. From what I understand, the lady that at LPRC, she was put there because her husband bought boots and did things for Weir back in his heyday. What does that woman experience in petroleum and management and making sure that inventories and other things are together and restructuring that whole provisional lifting thing and having somebody at MPA that knows what they're doing there, National Port Authority? What are those people's experience? Only one man you gave me an example of that we know to be in commerce or finance is Wilson Tape. But name other people that are in positions of leadership apart from Wilson Tape and Mabutu Nyempe or whoever that guy is at Public Works. I understand he's an engineer. Our foreign minister knows nothing about foreign affairs, and he told our legislators as such. But they're still confirming because what? The big man wanted him there. All the man team that he put together is not correct. So the buck stops with him. Let him go back, like Robert said. Let him go back and reshuffle. Let him put together a good team. Find our people in the diaspora in Liberia that have 21st century ideas, great ideas to make our country work. We can no longer do this patronage thing where because somebody did something for you in the past, or because I'm my friend, or because there's other person's friend, or this other deal will cross. We can't do that anymore. Let's find the right people for the job. Let's do meritocracy. Right now, we have a lot of incompetency going on in that country. We have a lot of mediocre people in positions of power. That's the problem.
Thank you. Again, cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia. This is our Saturday edition of our program here at Focus on Liberia. My name is Anthony C. hosting. We have Mr. Robert Gagwa Jr., who just returned from Liberia and is giving an eyewitness account on our people experiences, especially with the economy. Robert, let me ask this question. Let's look at the physical look of our people as a result of an economy that continues to deteriorate. Accessing money is a problem, everything is expensive, transportation is a nightmare. Do you see that in the faces of our people?
Yeah, it's hard not to. It's hard to say to answer otherwise when you just recently saw what has been going on at the gas stations. I mean, there's no reasonable person that will answer that question in the opposite way. So yes, you see the struggle. You see the struggle. Like I said in my opening statement, things are not going the way it should go, the way we want to see it go. But let me add, folks, that some of the issues that we have been discussing have been ongoing. And I've said this as no excuse to this government. This is Weir's economy now, regardless what he inherited. This is his economy to fix. And regardless of what happens, what happened when he took office, we are going 2 years into his first term, and whatnot, 3 years into his first term, and this is his economy to fix. And I think it's incumbent on him to look at the kind of legacy that he wants. I believe that when we got elected, those who voted him into office could relate to him. The folks from West Point, the folks from different slums in our country, slum communities, could relate to him. And I still believe that those people still relate to George Weah in many ways possible than they will relate to Dr. Kula and myself. And I still strongly believe that there are still chances, there are opportunities to seize the moment, but this president must act. But I don't want us to pin a picture or a narrative that somehow George Weah created all of these problems. All these problems just came from somewhere unknown, and it just started happening once George Weah took over. This government inherited a lot. There were things that were happening with our economy. I think we made mention of that before George Weah took over. Now it is his economy. He has to put forth the kind of economic plans, economic policies to get us back on floor. Uh, I and I also believe that we have to we have to. Politics is good, Asante. Politics is good, but the question is, what kind of politics do we want? Do we want a politics that encourages unity, that put aside our differences and bring us together in the interest of our country? There are people who honestly don't want to see this economy continue to fail, only because they don't agree with George Weah, only because they are not seditious. There are people that some folks that I know that have publicly said to me, Robert, I love what's going on because we told these people, elections, yes, elections have consequences. But again, some of the criticism that we've seen put forth on this government, objectively speaking, are criticisms that are not fair. And I,
Robert,
for one, yeah,
let me interrupt there. Okay, let's say, for example, I try to be unreasonable in my politics and say, yeah, I like what's going on. The government is performing badly or the government is struggling. I like it. That statement that I make, we is just a wish. How does that translate into things getting bad if the person in charge is doing the right thing to move things in the right direction? How does that help?
well, it doesn't help the narrative. It doesn't help, especially when what we see, what the word people who doesn't fully understand Liberia, people like look, there are people there Liberians who have not been back home in decades, in years. They get their information from social media. They get their information from social media. Look, the economy is bad, but when people post on social media that the country is falling apart and people are doing this, when you go to Liberia, it gives you a different narrative. Liberians are resilient people, and I see that resilience in them, even within all of the economic difficulties that we're going through. There are people. I'm not talking about people like us. There are people that are still surviving. There are people that are still businesses are still going about their normal business, even though they don't have the kind of support that they should have to actually strive to hire more folks, to pay folks the kind of stuff that they need. But the country has not fallen apart. The country has not fallen apart. And I hate to say this because when I say this, then people say, "Oh, Robert is a sedition." And I always tell people, I have a very big mouth. I've never been a member of any political party, Sandy. I've never been. And one thing I would not do, I would not be a coward. I would not be a member of a
Robert,
political
when you
party.
say the country has not fallen apart, are you talking about the physical landscape, the infrastructure? Because in terms of government, are you saying that there's something still there to hope in?
Of course, there's something still to the hoping. I
Okay.
mean, I won't be the optimistic person that I am if I tell you that there's absolutely no hope. I think that's the politics of where we find ourselves divided. There are people who are in the opposition only for opposition's sake or for opposing sake, who will say there's no hope. But how can we say that there's no hope when we've been through, I believe, when we've been through more difficult things and have come up strong than what it is that we're going through right now? Yes, the economy is bad. But do I believe that this president have to find the courage to press that reset button and actually get things to where it needs to get and said to himself, well, you know what? This is about my legacy and not my relationship. It's not unprecedented, Sonny, that over the years in Liberia we have appointed people not based on marriage, but based on friendship, based on political alliances and things of that nature. It's no secret about that. Ellen Johnson did that. Ellen Johnson appointed people in positions that were not qualified to be in those positions. We've seen this over and over. This is not brand new. The question is, how do we change that narrative? How do we change that mindset? What do we say after election? Election is one thing. And I understand that, of course, You want to give people the opportunity that help you get elected. But when people who help you get elected cannot help you govern, then you have to say, wait a minute, is it about our relationship? Is there something else I can do to show gratitude and put my country first? I still think that there's a hope when it comes to this president doing the right thing. But again, this president cannot do it alone. We have to help. We have to get involved. We have to be constructive in our criticism, and we have to be honest. Like I said in the beginning, I think there's a dose of this of the lack of honesty in our discourse, in our narratives, and the way we look at things.
Thank
you,
Robert.
Let me just interject real quick. Robert,
let me give you this one.
Let me interject before I forget, because this is the second time Robert has brought this thing up about the narrative and the opposition painting the picture as if there's doom and gloom. Robert, what the president and those around him have to understand, it's not the opposition's place to give the country hope. That's his place. He has to give our people a sense of hope and a sense of direction and a vision. So if they're waiting for the opposition to change that narrative and make it positive and say the country now falling apart, when they see various institutions like integrity institutions being broken down, where Janga Cole's wife is over PPCC and Janga Cole is a controller general of Liberia, it's not going to happen. Okay. So when we're talking about honest discourse about our government and politics, you cannot remove politics from governance, or you cannot remove politics from the running of a country. Now, if you're talking about in your workplace, remove politics from that, yeah. But in a country, no, it's never going to happen. So the opposition are going to be happy about the feelings of this government, the missteps of this government, and the opposition is going to make some of these things bigger than what it is. That's not their place to make it seem like it's not as big as it is. It's the president's place and his lieutenants, instead of having what a boy named Eugene Fagon running his mouth talking nonsense all day long. Maybe he needs to spend most of his time talking about what the country is doing, to what the president is doing to make things better, and giving that sense of hope and changing the narrative. But the opposition is not going to change that narrative. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, but Dr. Kula, hold on, Robert, let me throw this to him. Dr. Kula, I want to know, is our politics getting in the way of solutions, in the way of compromise? If
no,
where
I don't think so.
Heavier? Listen,
I don't think
if so, where is it heavier? Is it heavier with the opposition, or is it heavier with the government? Who's not listening?
I don't think our politics is getting in the way of solutions. What I see happening is this: the government and those in government think that they can run a country the way they ran CDC, through lies and propaganda, and they're realizing by every misstep that they make that they can't run a country like that, right? Because the opposition is not in power. They can take your missteps and blow it up and make it bigger than it is, okay? Like what Robert's probably saying is the way he saw things on the internet from the opposition saying, oh, the country is falling apart. When he went to Liberia, because of the resiliency of the people, he doesn't see the country falling apart. That's one thing. But to say that the opposition must change their narrative, they're not going to do that. So we'll be waiting forever for anybody to change their narrative when they see one misstep after the other. What I suggest to the government is they need to change their way of doing things. Like you said earlier, Anthony, they need to do the right things. They need to try to bring that change that they talk about, change for hope. They need to change things from the way we've been governing. Okay, we've been doing all our life where people put their friends in positions of power, but now you're taking it to another level. Not only are you putting friends in positions of power, but you're putting people that have nothing to do with the positions that they're in those positions because of whatever. And you're breaking down institutions that were there to keep things in check. What we expected this guy to do, and what most of the average Liberian expected this guy to do, was to actually bring change, was to actually focus on the poor people, focus on the economy, making the economy better for the poor people, lifting them out of poverty, as opposed to what was one of the first things he did. He had a function at Morris City Hall where he raised $350,000 for his friend Jefferson Koji. One of his portraits, one businessman bought it, I think, for $50,000. Did you see that, Robert? So you cannot be giving the people one message and you're doing another thing. A lot of what these guys are doing are mostly self-imposed injuries. Sit down, focus on governing the country, and everything else will work out on its own. But if you there, all you want to do, make money real quick, break down houses and build them, live lavishly, do everything like you the king. You don't listen to nobody. Look at the great suggestions that what a man made when they first took over. They told the man to go sell Coca-Cola. Recently, when this whole gas shortage thing came out, he made good suggestion again. So it's not that the oppositions are not making suggestions or they're not giving solutions. They are, but at the same time, they will capitalize on your missteps. They will capitalize on every mistake and every bad thing that you do. That's what the opposition does. So if we're waiting for them to change that, I don't think it's going to happen. It's not.
Yeah, but I think you asked a very important question. Is politics getting in the way of solutions? And unlike Dr. Kula's answer, I say yes, it is. Look, I would be very naive to sit here and say it is the responsibility of the opposition to give hope to the country. The opposition is not in governance. I will be a fool to sit here and say CDC has to, or the CDC-led government has to run the government as they ran the campaign or the political party. I think those two institutions should be different, right? But the fact of the matter is, I think it becomes a problem when we have the level of dishonesty. Look, politics does not necessarily
give us an example.
Give
us an example of the level of dishonesty.
Let me give an example. Mm-hmm. You have people standing in line, and I said on my social media place that I would have been outraged had I been in Liberia during this crisis. I mean, I have a car that uses gas, and I have a generator that uses gas. Where I live, LEC, I have not gone there yet. And I would be damned if I had to sleep in the heat for days, or can't get to my destination for days. And so when you have people standing in line, when you have businesses affected, and you have an already struggling economy, right? And you have a situation, a crisis. And the truth is, this thing just didn't develop over time. Yes, those responsible should be held accountable, by the way, and I think made some missteps to ensure that it didn't happen. But when you have such a crisis, I think what all of us, opposition or non-opposition or ruling party or independents, I think all of us should be more concerned about how do we resolve this crisis? Not because we want this government to succeed, or not because we want some level of positivity, but because we care about the people. It doesn't make no sense for you to say, well, politics means, you know what? I like the idea of you standing in line. Continue to stay in line. It doesn't make no sense.
I haven't seen that though.
When the government, but I've seen people who have said, for instance, why are you getting gas from Sierra Leone? Why are you getting gas from this place? Why does that
what
even
serious
matter?
Political leader?
Why does that even matter? Wait a minute. Let me land.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
I want when you land. Tell us what serious political leader has said that.
Look, again, it is not my place to define who's serious or who not. But when those close to the serious opposition leaders, when those close to the Alice Cummings, when those closest to the Benina Ure, when those closest to the Joseph M. Boaga, these are characters that are seen as potential candidates for 2023. When these people are putting forth these narrative that it's okay that these people continue to suffer, and you don't have to get gas from Syria. Why does it matter who we get gas from? As long as
I never heard that. I wish you would tell us who said that, because I've never heard that.
Well, I can't. I don't think it's my place to come on social media, to come on this show.
I've never heard that.
But there have been posts, there have been comments, there have been different comments, even on national radios in Liberia, that why would this government go to Sierra Leone? This government is very unserious. Why are you going to? What does it matter? Don't we want gas in the country? And didn't Sierra Leone come to Liberia for gas a few months ago when they had their own situation? Did the Sierra Leoneans care where we got gas from? So to his question, is politics getting in the way of solutions? I believe so. Politics is getting in the way of solution. It's one thing to be political or to be politically correct, but it's another thing to have the country at heart. I believe you can still be an opposition and be constructive. I believe you can still be an opposition and be a patriot. I believe you can still be an opposition and want to put the country first. And that means if there's something positive, if there's something that will that will benefit the interest of the people. Let me give you an example. We just had a military hospital that is 90% completed. Okay, my position initially was that, look, I think it's important that we renovate JFK, renovate and equip JFK, because I don't believe that we should have buildings, just building beautiful, nice buildings with nothing in it. It doesn't help the people who actually need them. Okay, so I said I think it'll be important for the government to renovate and equip JFK before constructing a new military hospital. And when I said that, I was very clear that it's also important that we start looking at development, expanding the needs of our people. JFK cannot be the only major government hospital in Liberia and just in Monrovia, because there are people who live thousands of miles away from Monrovia. I don't care how equipped JFK is, won't be able to benefit from JFK. And so what I've seen the government do is that they've been able to construct the military hospital and start the process of equipping and renovating JFK. Case in point, I think
Gentlemen.
last year December. Well, one second, let me land. It's very important. I think last year December we had our first surgery, brain surgery conducted in JFK, and it lasted for 3 hours. This is unprecedented. This has not happened for decades.
Robert, that's not true. That's not true.
Well, prove me wrong.
And I'll prove you wrong when you're done. I'll tell you
done.
exactly how that guy was able to do that surgery.
But the point is, there are people who still don't see the military hospital as a need, only because they have a different political opinion. And so we have to, as a people, we have to begin to say, hey, wait a minute. I may not agree with everything policy-wise with a particular government, not just this government. I may not agree. I didn't agree with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf on principle. I didn't agree with. I would have never supported Ellen Johnson Sirleaf because I believe she's a main player in why Liberia is where Liberia is right now. But I supported the idea of a new terminal because I believe that it would have helped our economy. It would have helped the image of our country. I didn't agree with her on anything. I agreed with some of her economic policies put in place. I didn't go on Facebook and say, hey, Ebola, this is Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's work, because I knew she wasn't the cause of Ebola. But she could have done better to build the structure, the healthcare structure, to better combat Ebola. And so we have to be very careful as Liberians. Do we really love our country? Yes.
All right.
Are we going to have differences? Yes.
Bravo.
But do we put our country first in certain instances? And I think we lack that. We haven't really.
Absolutely. Let me just say something.
Respond, and I'll go to
let me just respond to what Robert said. What Robert is conflating and saying that opposition or politics get in the way of solutions in the country, I differ with him on that, because for a few surrogates here and there to put on Facebook, this government is not serious. They're not going to Sierra Leone for gas, and in fact, that's not even them. It's Aminata's sons who send those tankers to Sierra Leone for gas. I don't think that really has anything to say for politics getting in the way when a major political leader in Cummings came out and gave point by point on solutions of what should be done in this gas shortage, what should be done with the economy. In terms of what you mentioned about the hospital, what people have been saying is, how can hospitals be closing down in Bone County and other places, and we're still building a military hospital, which they some of them say, yeah, it looks like a clinic compared to other military hospitals in the sub-region. But why are we building this when we're not equipping the hospitals in the country? Now you say JFK was equipped. The reality is JFK was not equipped by the Liberian government. JFK was equipped by the Prevail study led by the National Institutes of Health. And you say that doing the Ebola vaccine study at JFK, they're the ones who did all of that for JFK, number one. Number two, the brain surgery that was done by Dr. Alvin Dona. Dr. King, who's a neurosurgeon here at Atlanta Medical Center, and along with some Canadians, have been going to Liberia over 5 years since Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was in power. When Alvin Donau was at Jackson F. they trained Alvin Donau. They used to do surgery. They used to do brain surgery there with him in Liberia. Sometimes they would even, Dr. Kingdom would even leave. Some people score out and have to go back and replace it. And then recently, when the group left, they allowed him to do that surgery there. This government went and took it and blew it all over Facebook to show what they're doing. Even the doctors that were sent out of country, it was something that was established by Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, which is by the Liberia physicians, where they train doctors in different specialties. Okay, if the government is going to take the things that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf put in motion and say, oh, government is continuity, why can't they do the same thing with the economy and say, okay, government is continuity. We knew our economy was going to be bad. We're here now. This is our economy. We're going to fix it. You can't have it both ways. And with the opposition, I want to hear from major opposition leaders. As long as I'm hearing solutions from major opposition leaders, people like Costa and others can tease all day long, but the reality is this. If indeed we have hospitals closing down, and if indeed we're not equipping our hospitals, what are we going to do with this hospital that's being built? 2 years into the administration, it hasn't even been finished yet, but all the main properties is finished. What are we going to do in equipping this hospital if we're not equipping the other hospitals that we have right now? They don't have medicines. They don't have equipment. They don't have institutes of health and USAID. JFK would not have all that equipment they were showing off. That's
all right. Let's leave it right there. Let's leave it right there, Dr. Kula. All right, folks, in cyberspace, you are watching Focus on Liberia. And we have in studio Dr. Batam Kula and Mr. Robert Gagwa, who just returned from Liberia and sharing with us what is obtaining in the country. Gentlemen, I'm going to read a few comments, and then we'll go to our final segment on the issue of security. We have Stewart, right? I think most people have tried, but there is a resistance to change. Talking about people have tried to change the country. William King, right? He is a partner here focused on Liberia. So how do we hold the government or our government accountable? Thompson, right? Robert, you are now being transparent. Let's get to the bottom of the issue. Please be professional and stay on topic. Someone going after Robert there. Olivia B. Kula, I don't know if this person is related to Oliver, thank you. Thank you for that correction. Oliver B. Kula writes, thank you, gentlemen, for the critical analysis and for the constructive criticism. I hope Joshua can make sense out of it to benefit Liberia. And then Thompson again, what is your point? I don't know what. All of you talking points and analysis, that's Romeo Dennis. All of your talking points and analysis are 100% correct. I mean, the gentleman in the video, politics are in no way a hindrance to solution, because if the sitting government has solutions, then they should be able to deliver on that. The only interest of any political opposition is to see a certain government struggle and fail, so they capitalize on their errors. All right, then Dave Jar writes, Robert, those who are higher and are taking the huge paychecks have the responsibility to govern despite what opposition says. The CDC has the responsibility to govern whether the narrative is favorable to the government or not. There will always be noises, but the CDC government has to be focused and effective. Rebecca Chia, right? Even though you said these things were around when they took over, but yet still, Ma Ellen was paying her employee on the 14th or 23rd of every month. My dear, you are not fair to yourself. Few comments right there, gentlemen. Let's leave the economy a little bit. Let's go to the final segment. and that segment is security. Of recent, we heard about the death of Zina Miller, a broadcaster or an anchor at OKFM. During the just ended county meet, he reported that he was attacked at the stadium right in front of the eyes of the EPS director. He alarmed on Facebook, and it seems that no one paid attention to him. I think 2 days ago, he posted on Facebook that he was hurting. He had pains in his leg, and he needed to see the doctor. It's been reported that he is dead, and from doctor report, we are learning he died from internal bleeding. That is just one example of other people in the government who are in the security sector, or people who support the government, or going at people who they see or they view as being maybe anti-government or criticizing the government. Another example is a gentleman called Martin Colley, who today is now in Liberia, and before he could leave, he alarmed that people in the government or supporters of the government were after his life. Today, he's not in Liberia. We heard about the story of Justina Taylor, who, upon making a wild accusation against this government, Jefferson Koji and some people in the CDC as having gone somewhere, she was captured, she was adopted, she was drugged, and she was beaten. And today, Justina Taylor is not in Liberia. Many, many other examples we can point to. So the question is, are Liberians feeling secure? Are they feeling a unique sense of security in their country today? Or is this government repeating the mistakes of some government that were in power in the past? You go first this time, Dr. Kula.
Well, for the general security of how people feel in Liberia, I can't say. That's something that Robert will have to tell us as far as what was the sense that he got in the country. But in terms of the Justina Taylor case and Martin Colley, I think the opposition, again, capitalized on the mistakes of the government. This lady went and made some wild accusations in a video. And after that, people were after her. It was claimed that she was beat up and drugged and whatnot. And then she was placed in the hospital. And then Costa raised the alarm that she was about to be arrested and people should go there. And in that instance, you know, a group of people gathered and somehow she was able to leave the country. Martin Colley, at his graduation, there was something on there that people chased him and went after him, and later on he left. Now, some of these things, how do we know it's not embellished? How do we know that it's not made up to make the government look bad? I can't say. I don't know. But I know one thing is that the government should have left some of these things alone. Should have ignored some of these people, especially somebody like Martin Colley. Leave him alone, because anything you do to him, it's gonna blow up. It's gonna be big, make you look bad. Same thing with Costa. When Costa was in Liberia and they came up with this laissez-passer thing and they made it a big deal. Next thing you know, he flees the country, goes to Sierra Leone, and everything is in the international press, again, making the government look bad. At a certain point in time, this government has to look at itself and say, you know what? Let's choose our battles. What are things that are really critical that we need to go after? What are security situations in the country that we need to handle versus chasing people down rabbit holes, chasing everybody down a rabbit hole for one reason or another, or following this Serena Cephas guy who I understand has no real good credibility at all in terms of what I heard about his character and some of the things that he's done in the country. These are the kind of people that will lead this government astray and cause this government to do things that they have no business doing. I see a guy called Sylvester Moses, who used to be in Dole's government in the NSA, writing a lot of stuff, pushing this government to do certain things. Again, you have to be careful, choose your battles. Don't go down the route that Dole went down or Taylor went down and whatnot. You don't need it, because all you're doing is making things look bad for yourself, and then that compounds itself in making the country seem unsafe, and it affects the economy. So in the same vein that you want the opposition to be positive and not say certain things or not do certain things, you yourself have to find a way to set the tone in society where you keep the country in a state of positivity and moving forward. That's how I look at it.
And Robert, coming to you, you just from there. So let's get your first-hand account or experience with ordinary people. I know there is armed robbery that might be on the increase because here at Focus on Liberia, we had a family that we interviewed. Armed robber went on them in the middle of the night, shot the sister in the leg, shot the young man, the brother in the stomach, and they used cutlet to chop the mother's back. We reported that story here. I Focus on Liberia. We had the family here. We interviewed them, and they made effort to go to the police. The police emailed them. The case was never investigated the last time we checked with them. And so what is the general sense of security now? I mean, business people traveling in the night late, is it more like curfew? How are people feeling about their personal security?
Well, if I may, I just want to just 30 seconds pick it back when I say that politics is somehow in a way of solutions. I just want to, it's a very important point, son, if I may. There are times even with our political differences, we see it in this country all the time with the Democrats and Republicans. And what I meant by that is there are times where when the country is faced with a crisis, like when the recession happened in this country when Obama took over, we saw the politics during the campaign. But when Obama came into office, Americans came together to address the economic crisis. Of course, Obama economic policy had a lot to do with it, but Congress, Democrat or Republican or Independent, was able to work with them. In Liberia, when Ebola happened, we came together as Liberians to address that crisis.
Robert, did you say Congress in Obama? I mean, Obama administration work with Obama?
No. What the point that I'm making is during the recession, of course, there were politics, but Democrat and Republicans came together to address the economic crisis in the country.
No,
I mean,
no, Robert, I disagree with you. The stimulus, I don't want to throw off the stimulus. The Republican did not vote for it.
It was
healthcare.
It wasn't.
Let us not.
No, but we're not talking about the healthcare. That's more of a political thing. I'm talking about the economy.
Even the economy, they did not work with Obama.
Well, but it wasn't a politics thing, but you have more Republicans supporting that. When Ebola happened in Liberia, the first time in a long time, Liberians came together. Of course, there were politics when it comes to the health structure, but Liberians came together. So when I said that to say, whenever we have a crisis, yes, we can talk about the politics, but I think it's important that we come together to address those issues. Now, let's go back to your question as far as security. Look, when it comes to armed robbery and things like that, I think these things have always existed in Liberia. I remember my very first trip back home. A couple of times, people jumped over our fence, even with security, to steal battery. And these guys were not necessarily armed with guns, but they had cutlasses, they had knives, they had blades, and things like that. Look, in any country where you have a lot of youth, okay, now we call them the Zoga boys. These guys who at one point participated in the war, and there have been no program, no structure to reintegrate them back in society. I think you're always going to have this problem. So as far as the armed robbery is concerned, I think that has always existed. I personally have not had to experience that. And so I can't really speak to the level of it, but it has always been there. Now, as far as the movement, a lot of times I used to go home. I live in Caldwell, and I'll leave home, like 9, 10 o'clock, and I won't return until maybe 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock. And there were the normal checkpoints that you go through, and people will ask you for your ID, ask to check the back of your cars, and things like that. There was never a sense of fear. Of course, you have to protect yourself. There was never a sense of fear, I think, until the recent protests in Liberia. I received many calls from home. My girlfriend, my mother, and folks were telling me, "Do not leave home." And there were lots of people in Liberia, a lot of locals, who said, "We're not coming, we're not leaving our homes. We don't want to come out because there's a sense of fear. We don't know what's going to happen." And that, for the most part, that day when the protest was going on, I spent most of my time home. I left home around 4 o'clock. And for the first time, even the night before the protest, I saw men with arms from not just the police department, but from the armed forces, who were at these checkpoints. There were more uniformed and armed police officers than there are usually there. And those were the first time I felt this sense of fear, this sense of insecurity in the country. That, wait a minute, what's going to happen? And that was the only time. Even on the day of the protest, I didn't feel that sense of security or fear as much. And so I said that there are more economic security. There are other things as far as security are concerned than there are when it comes to the movement of people feeling safe and things like that. I never really got that sense.
And Dr. Kula, from what Robert is telling us, do you sense an increased level of economic insecurity on the part of our people? Because he was talking about, for the first time when he was there during the protest, he felt this sense of fear. Why are people afraid of protests?
I don't think, I would hope it wasn't that they were afraid of protests. I would think that the country and the government and those in support of the government made protests seem so bad and made it seem so negative that it created a sense of fear in the country. Even like the first protest, when the government had people marching out with guns and face masks and all of that, they created a sense of fear in the country. I think they thought they were creating a sense of fear in the protesters to prevent protesters from coming out, but it created a sense of fear in the entire country. And I think those are some of the things that the government needs to consider when they're making some of these decisions. I mean, protest in and of itself is not a bad thing, but when you create a feeling amongst yourself that protesting will bring your government down and it's bad and is bringing war, you will tend to create a sense of fear amongst your people. And I think it's wrong. And I think it's based on, those in leadership, and the way how they look at things.
All right. Again, folks, in cyberspace, this is Focus on Liberia. And we have been discussing an eyewitness account of how things are in Liberia. Our guest, Robert Gagwa, has just returned from Liberia. And that is the conversation we've been having. How are the ordinary people feeling about the economy? How are they making it on a day-to-day basis? And do they feel secure in the country? That is what we have been discussing. We have a comment here from Mr. Emery Nico Jr. That's the propaganda of fear mongering to prevent people from coming out to protest. Agnes Rabo Blapo, right? The government was the one instilling fear in the people to prevent them from going out to protest. Ambassador S. Jimmy writes, even in the USA, it happened here too. People go to banks and the gas station and put people on a gunpoint and take away money and other things. It don't mean the government is in support of it. That's why he writes, Vani Vafole, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. This young man is a liar. And he doesn't even know about the situation the Liberian people are facing right now. I don't know who he is going after. Few comments right there. Gentlemen, again, this is Focus on Liberia. Folks who are watching in cyberspace, we have posted a number several times for you to call. And that number is right there in the last feed. You will see it if you want to call. Place your call, but we didn't get a call, so we have been reading some comments. we will be wrapping it up here. Let's come to you, Robert. We have been here for an hour and 30 minutes now. We will need your closing statement. So now that you have the experience, I know you said all is not lost yet, and maybe you would think, yeah, there is still hope. You think with all that you're saying, you look at the government and you feel that, it seemed to be they don't get a grasp of the thing yet. You think they're going to turn it around? Can you close with that?
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. And it's like I said, it's always an honor to be here to discuss Liberia from a balanced and objective perspective. I do think that there's hope. Look, if you look at the Liberia and what Liberia and Liberians have endured and things that we've been through, there's no way possible you cannot see us coming out of this as a strong nation and strong people. We've been through a lot, and this is no excuse as to a reason why we should continue to go through. But elections do have consequences, and so it is my hope that whatever it is that we're going through allows Liberians, regardless of your political affiliation, to make better decisions, to make more informed decisions. But there is hope. We came out strong from a long civil war that is still affecting our infrastructure today. That's still affecting our system. We have a systemic issue in Liberia that one government cannot solve in one term or in two terms. It's a continual thing that will get us to where we need to get to. We came out of Ebola very strong, even though we still feel the effect with the economy, or what that had to do with the economy, how that affected the economy, because we were doing pretty well until Ebola. We came out very, very strong. And so with this crisis, with this economic crisis, I think we will come out strong. Now, it would definitely require some serious leadership. It will require some serious leadership. And so, like I've done privately and I've done publicly, I will continue to engage constructively. I will continue to be very outspoken, but I will do so constructively. I will do so honestly, and I will do so with some level of balance. I think that some actions this government must take. This government must restructure its economic team. This government must recruit some qualified folks. I think the president just nominated our new agriculture minister. I think I like her. She has the experience. Most importantly, she has the practical experience in that area. Now she needs the tools, the support to succeed. I think we need more people like her who have the experience. But there's still hope. When you look at Liberia, my brother, Liberia is very great. I come from the hospitality background. And when you look at Liberia right now, there's two sectors that can actually get us back on our feet: the tourism sector and the agricultural sector. I think right now you will create more jobs with more hotels that have been opening, more entertainment places. But as these hotels come in, like I always say, we have to invest in that sector. 80% of our folks are either doing political science or they are doing business. But like I told my friend, not everyone who has an entrepreneur degree or entrepreneur spirit or in business will be able to go to the bank and get the loans to start their own business. Not everyone who's doing political science will be elected the senator or representative. But if we start investing in that sector, in the tourism sector, where we have a 2-year degree in hospitality, there will be people who can go and get jobs in these different hotels where we're not importing these people in executive level. So there's still hope, but we have to lead. We have to lead, and we have to lead with a sense of humanity. We have to lead with a sense of honesty and put our people first. And that's how I feel about it.
And please, the general sense of security in other counties, did you get how people are feeling in other counties besides
Uh,
Monrovia?
well, everything is happening in Moreover, and Moreover is not Liberia. I think that people always have this notion that, and partly I agree, that if it's worse in Morovia, then obviously it must be not easy in different counties. But even with the gas situation that is happening in the country or in Liberia, I haven't really heard much about the they infect in these different counties. I spoke to a friend of mine in Boston who said to me that they did not having the kind of issue that people in Monrovia experience with the gas shortage. And I also spoke to a friend of mine in Lofa who said the same thing. And so, well, but obviously, if the economy is bad in the country, as in like in Monrovia or whatever, then I assume that it's bad everywhere. But there's this general opinion of what's happening in Monrovia, because everything is in Monrovia, and there's some logic will conclude that yes, there are people in the entire country that are definitely feeling the bad economy, the struggling economy. But with the gas situation, I think mostly it was felt most in Maserati County and other surroundings in the country in that area.
Thank you, Robert. Right there, we just returned fresh from the nation's capital, Monrovia. We are glad to have you, Robert. Dr. Coulard, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Robert for this discourse, and I agree with him on several points. And one major point is that we all have to be honest with ourselves and the discourse, and that whenever there's a crisis in the government, we as a nation need to come together and give solutions. In this particular crisis, Cummings have given solutions that I wish the government will capitalize on. In terms of what he talked about, agriculture and the hospitality industry, tourism being a major source of reviving our economy, all the president needs to do is to look on his left side or his right side, and his wife will be there. His wife is a Jamaican. Jamaica is the world's #1 when it comes to the hospitality industry. They're known for tourism. They've branded themselves as a huge tourist attraction. All he needs to do is tap into his wife, have her talk to the Jamaican Tourism Board, and let them come together and talk to our people and help us shape our tourism board into a tourism visitors bureau or whatever the case may be, and build up places like Roberts Port with our beautiful surfing beaches and whatnot, Lake Piso, beautiful area, all the different areas in our country, so that we can build that economy in that aspect. Agriculture, you know, you can say anything about what's his name, Henry Costa, all you want, but Henry Costa has been talking about agriculture forever on his show, and how the government could capitalize on agriculture and cash crops and cassava, and how the Chinese, before their situation on coronavirus, dealt with the Nigerians in importing cassava and whatnot to China for their hogs to eat and all kinds of stuff. I mean, the solutions have been made. Our government needs to listen to the opposition and needs to work with the opposition as well as with other Liberians. It doesn't have to always be a CDC person that has to come up with the idea, or somebody connected to the CDC before you can capitalize on it. Capitalize on the ideas that are being put forth by all Liberians, regardless of what party they belong to, regardless of whether they're opposition or they're with you. And we all together can build this country and make it a better place. Thanks for having me, and have a good night.
Dr. Coulard, our Chief Policy Analyst, we want to say thank you. Again, folks in cyberspace, my name is Anthony Sier. We want to say thank you for following our program here this evening. And this is how we will come to the end of our broadcast. Tomorrow, we are having 2 shows, one at 3 and one at 6 p.m. Don't miss it. We will be right here. Here, I focus on Liberia. We educate, we elevate, we promote all things Liberia. One of the ways you can support our network here is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, tap Focus on Liberia, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is a way that you can help to promote what we do. Thank you for watching, and that will do it for us here. Bye-bye, gentlemen, with the sun. All right.